the bill is going to allow 14-year-olds to work without permission from the school and without permission from the parents. And we're always concerned about parental rights and all of this.
Well, okay, really enough. Hold on one second. Let's back up here for a second.
Which side are you on?
So we talk with Jacob Morrison from the Valley Labor Report here on the Dale Jackson Show. Once a week, we talk with him around this time every single Tuesday. And the reason why we have this conversation with him is to just check in and see what's going on with unions. There have been a lot of things happening with them. 9:30 to 11 on Saturday, you can hear their whole show and what they discuss there. Jacob, thanks for joining us. You mentioned something in a text message to me about these child labor bills. This seems to be something the left is really fired up around the country about. The issue here is not let's put these kids down in a coal mine and allow them to work. One of these bills says basically that the kids can work. They don't need to get permission from their schools to do so, and they can get in the labor force sooner and work at like fast food restaurants and things like this. It's not. They're not saying go do dangerous labor. And I know we've seen the dangerous labor, and there have been some kids working in auto plants and manufacturing facilities and things like that. You and I kind of sparred over, how that was more of an issue of illegal immigration than anything else. But why all the concern over all of this talk about, quote, child labor? I mean, when you frame it like that, of course, the people are going to be kind of weary about it. But I had a job when I was 13 years old, selling newspapers door to door. Probably shouldn't have been doing that, especially if you've ever read No Tommy No. There's a part of No Tommy No that's kind of been cleaned up for a children's audience, where one of the newspaper kids was kind of attacked by some creep. But it sounds very strange. I probably need more details there. But either way, I was working at that age, and these are not situations where they're trying to put these kids in dangerous situations, right? I mean, why are we so worried about this?
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, you're wrong that there is actually a move to put kids back in the coal mines. There was a bill introduced by an Indiana Republican that would explicitly allow 14-year-olds to work in coal mines. So,
wait a second, hold on. What? See, if that's true, and I will believe you when you say that's true in Indiana, I'm with you on that. That's crazy. But I specifically asked the sponsor of the bill here, that's not what this is about. So I just want to make that distinction.
Yeah, no, and I was getting to that, but I just, it is funny that both you and actually Matt Walsh recently have talked about we're not sending kids into the coal mines because that's the most extreme thing that anybody can think of and so obviously wrong, and yet Republicans in Indiana are trying to do that. But you're right that here, they're not trying to do that. And to Arthur Orr's credit, the sponsor of the bill, he is at the same time as he's pushing this bill to make it easier for 14-year-olds to work in positions where they already could have. He is pushing a law to increase penalties for employers who employ children outside of the bounds of the law. And awesome. So, I appreciate him for that. But, it's not the left, or unions or Democrats or anybody that is, starting a conversation about child labor. It's the Republicans who are trying to make it easier to employ children than it has been, in 50, 60, 70, 80 years. You're right. Lots of people have jobs when they were young, when they're teenagers. I had a job when I was a teenager. I worked a cashier at a local grocery store. I was mowing my church's lawn from the time that I was, like 11 to 18, And so, look, I understand children work, and that's fine. But we have guardrails, and we should have guardrails, and there's no reason to believe that they should be loosened. And the bill in Alabama specifically that Arthur Orr is pushing would, like you say, get rid of the requirement that schools sign off on 14 and 15-year-olds to work. 16-year-olds already don't have to have this permission, but 14 and 15-year-olds do. And I think that's absolutely a valid requirement. Why should a 14-year-old who is failing school go and work in the afternoon. That is not going to be good for him. It is not going to be good, or her. That's not going to be good for their grades. And it's certainly not going to be good for society, because once you start working, it's obviously easy to get in, a rat race, get on the treadmill, and not be able to get off. The reason that we have public universal education is because it's better for society. It's because it's better for the individuals. And if we give people more avenues to get off of the education system early, that's going to be worse for everybody.
I mean, they still have to go to school. This isn't saying they don't have to go to school anymore. I mean, that's not what this says, though.
Right, but it's saying that they don't have to get permission from the school. And, the question is, what is the problem that we're trying to fix, right? Because I'm not aware of a single instance where a school is stopping a child who is, has all A's or A's and B's or B's and C's.
Okay, I agree with that.
I'm not aware of a single instance of that happening. And so the only people that are being stopped, presumably, are people that are failing school. And so, so the bill is going to allow 14-year-olds who are failing school to work without permission from the school and without permission from the parents, actually. So, that's another thing, is this bill doesn't require even a permission form from the parents of 14-year-olds. And we're always concerned about, parental rights and all of this, unless, the kid is going to go work for a capitalist.
Well, enough. Hold on a second. Let's back up here for a second. I think it's important to point.
It's obvious. Yeah,
listen, Jacob. Listen, hold on. You gotta let me get in here for a second. Listen, on the issues, I think you're raising, there may be some merit here, but I think what the concern here is, and this is probably, I think, the more legitimate point here, is not necessarily about all these kids going against their parents and going and getting jobs and things like that. There are kids that do want to work at a younger age. They want to get into the labor force sooner. Sometimes school isn't right for them. I'm with you. They should be in school doing what they need to do. And this removes one regulation from them being able to get in there and get to work. I don't see it as that big of a deal. And like you said, there are measures here to stop from the dangerous work. And we talked about what the fine for the kid, what did he fall? Did he die or did he break his back? I can't remember the story. Who was working in a place he shouldn't have been working. And that employer got a fine, which probably should have been bigger. And that right there, it needs to be addressed. But allowing kids to work in a fast food restaurant earlier after school, I just don't see. And look, there's some responsibility that goes along with this to the parents. I agree with that. But why the outrage over this? Because the implication here is not as you're describing it from some of the media. They're implying that we are definitely putting these kids at risk, and I don't think that's the case.
Well, actually, again, what's the big issue here? The Republicans are raising the issue. This issue, as far as, non-Republican lawmakers were concerned, has been settled for a century. We have certain regulations. And again, you're saying this is removing one regulation from kids getting into the workforce. Again, show me a single instance where a child who is doing reasonably well or, along the median or even slightly below the median, show me a single instance where a child, a reasonable person would say, can handle an after-school job that is being barred from working. I mean, a single child, and then we can have the conversation.
So what do you think this is really about?
That's when we start the conversation.
So what do you think it's really about? What's the real story here?
I think that, the real story is that there are people, particularly, fast food restaurants, who don't want to pay higher wages to adults and people who are more likely to stand up to their employers. And they want a more easily exploitable workforce. And actually, you're talking about not putting kids in danger. The service industry has a higher percentage of sexual assault than any other industry. And so, the kids that the industries that we talk about kids working at, yes, there is, it's fine generally for people to work there, but there are real dangers working at McDonald's or working in a restaurant or a grocery store, real dangers that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. And, when you have a 14-year-old, they see their boss not only as an authority figure in charge of their check, but they see adults generally as moral authority figures. And like adults, when they say something, they are right and they know better, right? And so they are less likely to push back not only on bad labor practices, you're going to work me too hard or too long, but even when we're talking about inappropriate sexual advances, a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old is easier to take advantage of than an adult. Wow.
Okay. There is definitely something there. Do you think this bill passes?
I don't know. I haven't seen. It's difficult to say. I haven't seen a whole lot of discussion about it. I only know that it's been it did pass committee without any opposition from the Democrats. There was some verbal opposition, but they ultimately did not vote to keep it in committee. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think it should. I think that Arthur Orr and others who are pushing the bill should make the case that there has been a single child that reasonable people agree can handle an after-school job that has been barred from doing that. I think
it might also be the idea that you remove the regulation from the process, and then you have a situation where people don't have to worry about that, and they just do it. That's the angle I think you would use, not necessarily that there are a bunch of people being told no. So I think that might be something that might be there. But look, again, we're not talking about coal mines here, and we are. I take your point about the inappropriate behavior and things like this. I would look at schools and see where that's happening as well. I'm not saying to ever minimize it or anything like that, but I think that's a little bit overblown in this situation. But it's an interesting perspective, and I appreciate you bringing it to the table. He will bring you more interesting perspectives, 9:30 to 11, Saturday, right here on WVNN. That's Jacob Morrison with the Valley Labor Report. We always appreciate him coming in here and talking about these issues, and it gives us a way to talk about them with someone who we don't always agree with, and that's good.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.